Right, well, I'll tell you what, Kieran, let's dive straight in. What's tip number one you've got for us?
So tip number one is to leave space between reading and implementation.
Ooh, tell us about this.
So I think it can be really exciting, particularly when we're as interested in education research as we might be, and our peers are, to read something and jump straight in. But I think that's possibly the easiest way to get towards lethal mutations. So if I can give an example, the first time I read about retrieval practice was in 2014. So I read David Dowdow's "What if everything you knew about school was wrong?" And it was 2017 before I actually put anything in place that utilised it. I actually had to read David's book twice because it challenged quite a lot of my assumptions about education. But I went to the source material, so I went to the Bjorks and some of their colleagues, because they sort of co-authored work with different people, and then sort of poked for holes, and then thought, well, how can we make this manageable in the classroom? And so I thought this would be, I've read sufficiently enough that I can utilise this with colleagues. One of the things I'm thinking about at the moment is the question about when does coaching become another fad? And I think it's when we don't spend time looking at the different models, because coaching, I think, is reasonably complex, and to read about coaching and then decide everyone in school is going to be a coach, I think that's not necessarily the most effective way to get the most from it. So I think, look at what the experts say. There are different models of instructional coaching. Instructional coaching is perhaps just one model of coaching itself, and then and then make a plan for maybe 6 months to a year's time and see where we go from there.
This is great. Let's dive into this. So first, just on the coaching thing, everybody's chatting coaching, aren't they, Kieran, these days? I need to get into this coaching. I need to get up that on the Twitter bio. I'm missing out here. It's all over the show. Well, where's that come from, do you reckon?
I mean, I think Research Aid has been very, very effective in disseminating sort of messages about things that might have, our best bets. I was thinking about listening to Nick Rose on your podcast many, many years ago, and he was talking about what our best bets are. We don't know things are going to be effective, but we do know that some things are likely to be more effective than others. And I think when you've got people like Josh Goodrich, like John Hutchinson, talking about the impact that coaching might have and how they've utilised it in their context, I think, combine that with Tom Sharrington and Oliver Caviglioli's walkthroughs, and you've almost got a critical mass of people who, you should listen to when they speak, saying this might be something worth doing.
Yeah, that makes sense. And the other thing I was going to say, so I'm really pleased when you sent these tips through. I love all of them, but this one in particular, because I've done this, Kieran, as well, right? You read one thing, you think this is the thing, and I'm going to dive in. And the problem was I never read anything for 12 years. Then I tried to read everything, so my lessons were just a disaster. And beforehand, and like the year after I started reading stuff, because every time I'd read it, I'd just try it out, and I didn't have a clue what I was doing. And I'll give you a good example of this. So interleaving's a really interesting one, mentioning the Bjorks. So when I first read it as part of Desirable Difficulties, I thought, this sounds good. You just mix stuff up and something magical happens. But the kids hated it. Performance dipped, and performance dipped so much that learning never really seemed to take off in the end, and it was really bad. And I think it's only now, so this is maybe six years on from first reading about it, 7 years on, that I've finally started to get to grips with perhaps what it takes to make it work and some of the subtleties that I missed. So my first to say is I fully agree with you, but my follow-up question is, what helped me with interleaving wasn't just leaving time, but also making sure I checked out other people's take on it. I think this is quite important as well. There's a podcaster I listen to called Tyler Cowan. He talks a lot about this. He says, whenever you're reading about something, make sure you read several different people's take on it, because then you start to get the bigger picture of it. Whereas if you just focus on one take, even if it's really clear, you get a bit of a narrow view of it. So do you think it's a mixture of, when you read something, leaving time, but also then trying to get different takes on it in different sources, or is time sufficient?
I mean, I definitely agree. I think the best use of that time that you've left, first time you read about something, okay, I've got a general idea. And then, lots of people that I talk to will have 3 or 4 books on the go at the same time around similar ideas, and maybe not just education based, but how it applies maybe in other contexts, business, that kind of thing. So 100% with you. I think the best use of that 6 months is giving yourself the most rounded picture possible.
And final one on this, Kieran, is tempting though, isn't it, right? Because you've read it, you want to try it, It's hard, and especially when you, because I've spoken about this with a few people, this kind of fear of missing out. You see on Twitter somebody's chatting about something, you want to dive in and give it a go, and you want to think, well, what's the worst that can happen? How do you resist?
That's a really good point. I think there probably is a fine balance between the practitioner in the classroom who might try something out, tomorrow, and the school leader who is looking to plan for meaningful change. So perhaps the bulk of what I'm saying might apply more to leaders, because in the classroom, if it doesn't go well, you can always fix it the next day with something that's more tried and tested. I totally understand. But I think it maybe depends on your particular context.
You're absolutely right there, because we've all seen this, right? SLT get hold of an idea, next thing it's the next big thing, it's the new policy. They haven't had time to think it through. The foundations aren't there, and it's a disaster. Yeah, I like that. So individual teachers, by all means, try stuff out. SLT, maybe just put a pause on it. That's good, that, Kieran. I like it.